Hello, I'm Amanda Burke from Townhall 2. I am a prevention specialist there. My primary role is problem gambling prevention. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what problem gambling is. We're also going to briefly touch on our upcoming state legalization of sports betting and look at how we can, if we choose to gamble, how to do so safely. Also explore some warning signs should an issue result. Townhall 2 is a provider for problem gambling treatment and prevention services in the county. So we are the main source for that. So we're here if you do need us, and hopefully this information will be helpful along the way. Okay, I'd just like to do a quick disclaimer. The agency isn't, we're neither for nor against legalized adult gambling. It's not our call to say if you choose to gamble or not. Our main task is to make sure if you choose to gamble that you know that it can be done safely, and if an issue does result, you know where to go in order to seek support. So what is gambling? We have to define it in order to be able to be on the same kind of playing field here. So a couple of key characteristics with this definition. First idea is risking. So you have to risk something, and it's not just money. When we think of gambling, we often just tie it directly to money, but it's money or something of material value. That is determined by the individuals who are participating in the act of the betting or the wagering. It's up to them to decide what's of material value. If we think about our resources from childhood up, what material value is, what those items might be, is definitely going to differ. So we're risking money or something of material value on something with an uncertain outcome. So we don't know what's going to happen. If we don't know what's going to happen, then obviously that's a little bit more risky. In the hope of winning additional money or something of material value. So the reason we're doing it is because we hope to get something extra in return. So we're doing it to get something more. The other key to this is that once the bet or wager is made, it's not reversible. So there's no take-backsies. So if we can say, oh, I changed my mind, that's not technically gambling. One thing I do want to mention with this definition is that this is the basic definition. There is a separate legal definition of gambling, but the actions are the same. So this idea of something of value is where that legal definition differs from this basic definition. Okay, so if we're going to think about this idea of gambling, there's a couple of questions we can ask ourselves. Why might a person choose to gamble? It's a great question. Some people choose to. Why might a person avoid gambling activities? And what are some examples of gambling activities? Now, when we think of gambling, oftentimes people say, oh, I don't gamble. But when you start looking at the activities that we participate in, we start to see that most of us do, in fact, have some type of gambling behaviors within our daily lives, at least within our weekly lives. It's not just going to the casino. It's not just playing cards. There are multiple different examples of gambling. So what's the appeal of gambling? We have kind of what are called the 4 E's. This is not everything, but kind of encompassed into different categories. The first idea is entertainment. It's fun. It came about as a means of having a good time, a way to kind of take ourselves away from the monotony of daily lives. So the number one reason most often that people choose to gamble is simply for entertainment. We also have the excitement that's associated with it. So because of that risk we identified earlier in the definition, there's this thrill and that uncertainty that comes with it. It makes it more exciting. Since we don't know what's going to happen for some of us, that can be something that really draws us in. There's also that possibility of an economic gain. Now, not always, but absolutely that's kind of what we hope for when we're participating. So economic gain is another E that we can think about. And the last one that becomes more problematic for us is escape. This is when we're choosing this particular behavior or this particular activity in order to kind of mask the emotional feelings that we're having, in order to kind of escape reality, in order to try to change our emotional state. This can be problematic because we aren't necessarily addressing what's bothering us, and once we're done gambling, it still exists. So gambling for an escape isn't necessarily a solution to those issues. It is something that some people do choose to do. Okay, When we look at gambling activities, they're classified into two different types. This is helpful because it helps us understand a little bit about our particular behaviors and also our risk level related to the activities. Because depending on the type of activity we pick, some of them are more riskier than others. Well, the first one is games of chance. Now, the key here is that the events are random and there's completely uncertain outcome. The other thing is that the strategy that you use, it doesn't make it more likely that you're going to win. It doesn't matter what you do at all. It won't change the likelihood of winning. So oftentimes we can associate things such as rituals here come into play. Someone blowing into a die prior to rolling it. Someone maybe who goes to a casino and puts a particular item on a slot machine. Those are things that aren't going to change the outcome of winning. It doesn't matter the strategy that we use. Games of skill are our second one. This one's a little bit unique because we do have to have some knowledge or ability in order to actually participate. And because of that, it does increase our chances of winning. But still, the outcome is uncertain. So even if we have great knowledge, we have amazing abilities, it's still not certain that we're going to win. So it's still gambling.
Hi.
Hello. So with both of these activities, both of these types of activities, outcome is uncertain regardless of skill level, regardless of your ability, and regardless of strategy. All right, so we have some examples for skill, and you came in, so I can now use you, if you're willing.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you think would be a gambling activity that would fit into that skill category? Where you have to have some knowledge or ability or understanding in order to be able to be successful.
Skill? I mean, are we talking about maybe stuff at the carnival type games?
Okay.
I mean, I would say something that you have to maybe put some effort into it, but that can increase your odds or something like that, maybe.
Yeah. So, go ahead. Yeah.
Poker?
Yeah. Those are both great examples. So yeah, poker is one of those. If you don't understand how to play the game, you're gonna have a way less likelihood of winning because you have to understand the way that the cards stack up. You have to understand the different sets. You have to understand what a flush is. All of those things with poker. So you have to understand the rules of the game in order to do that. Your example of games at the carnival is another great one. So when we think about playing a sport in order to get money, so bowling or darts or any of those kinds of carnival games, if we're actively participating in it, and the more skill we have, the more ability, the greater chance we have that we could come out on top. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Sports betting, we're gonna put that on there with a question mark because we're gonna look at our other one and kind of see what our thoughts are on that aspect. Oh, what do you think are some examples of games of chance?
Roulette.
Yeah, roulette's a great one. Yeah, absolutely.
Slot machines.
Slot machines, yeah, it doesn't matter what you do. It's completely random. Slot machines are fully random. Yep, we can't change it.
Lottery, probably.
Yeah, that's another good one. Yep, the lottery as well. People may think that they can a special day or this number was called yesterday, so I'm going to pick this one. It's totally random, so we can't change the outcome no matter what strategy we use. Those are great examples. Pretty much all dice game. We can't control the roll of the die. It's a 6-sided die, so it's going to have a set percentage of every single time that die is rolled. That's the chance you have of it landing on the particular number you're seeking. Bingo is another one. We can't predict or we can't control what number comes up on those balls as they're called throughout. So that's definitely random. Lotteries, the instant win tickets, those are the scratch offs. You can have your favorite coin, but it's not going to change the likelihood of it actually being a winning
Sometimes
ticket.
It feels like it though.
Absolutely, it does feel like it. Definitely,
Sometimes with the dice, I feel like I'm getting hot too. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and that's true. We do get that feeling, and when our gambling behaviors become problematic, we get stuck in that idea that we can actually control it. But understanding that we don't have control keeps us at a safe playing field. But yeah, it does get that feeling, especially if you're getting what you want to happen repeatedly a couple of times in a row. 100%, yeah. Raffles and slot machines. Those are all some examples of chance games. We'll come back to sports betting.
Okay.
All right, so I want to touch on this because our state is going to have legalized sports betting starting January 1st, 2023. That's the intended goal. And it's going to change the complete face of our state. Ohio is actually the state that we have the largest expansion of gambling in the country happening right now with how we're legalizing sports betting. So we have a lot of legalization coming in from a lot of different avenues. So we are going to have pretty much nearly all means of gambling legalized within our state, which means that we are going to have a lot of information that we need to discuss. So looking at this idea of sports betting, it can be seen as a game of skill because you have to. If you were sports betting, what would you need to know?
I mean, like for football, you probably just want to know matchups and stuff like that. I mean, that's what I'm thinking of. 'Cause I've been seeing the NFL with the DraftKings and all that stuff. So, knowing what players are, in the lineup for the day, how they match up, stuff like that, injury reports, whatever. Stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can understand things about the players, understand things about the teams, things about injuries, their win-loss percentages. All that kind of information makes us feel that because now we have more knowledge that we're able to predict the winner. And it makes us feel that we are more in control. So because it could be considered a game of skill, it could lead to that belief that knowing more means that we're going to win more. But the outcome is ultimately uncertain. We don't know who's actually going to win. But that idea can definitely take over our thinking.
Especially if you watch the NFL this year. Everyone's been wrong.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So no matter how much we know about players, we can't know what injuries are going to happen. We can't know what's going to take place from one move to the next. So that's one of the big things. Knowing more doesn't mean you're going to win. It increases the chance that you could, but it's still uncertain. We're still not going to win. But sports betting gives us that kind of mentality, thinking that we can do it. The odds change constantly, right? So with every single play that's made in whatever sport it is, everything that happens, the odds change constantly. And what that does, that is consistently triggering our brain's reward cycle. And so because of that, then again, we get that kind of feel-good idea. It also pulls us in and engages us to want to stay fixed into that game because we're like, oh yes, that's great. And then that up and down, it's a constant excitement over and over again. It brings that dopamine, that pleasure molecule out. So that's one of the distinct features about this particular type of activity. The other thing is that with our legalization coming up, the ways that we can participate in legal sports betting are going to be immense. So right now, we don't have legal options to participate because it's not currently legal. Yet, we're still participating in it. Now, once it is legalized next year, we're going to have on our cell phones, we're going to be able to do it through the internet. It's going to be in person. And we'll have an official system on top of those illegal systems that are already in play. So there are going to be so many different ways that we can participate, and so that, in its own right, that kind of access can be problematic if we're not thoughtful about our participation. We also have a built-in cheering squad with crowds. So with each one of those events that happens in the game, if the crowd is cheering and we've placed a bet on a particular act or a particular outcome, well, then that can be kind of boosting us up too, right? That boosts up our own personal ego because we have these, we're like, yeah, they're cheering. So it can trick our mind as well. Our sporting events are heavily discussed and promoted. So because of that, this is not something that we're necessarily trying to hide. It's not something that isn't considered to be culturally appropriate. It's something that we're supporting. So to have that kind of support, that definitely encourages our participation down the line.
I think it's on Sunday Night Football. They actually have like a live bet now. I don't know if you've seen that, but during like the pregame show or whatever, they actually have like a bet. Like you bet for yards, bet for and then it's like sponsored by DraftKings at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's insane. I've never seen it before in my life until this year. And like they're literally having like what's the guy's name? Mark Sanchez, like place a bet, like live on the screen. I'm like, really?
Yeah, it's in many of the professional sports leagues are supportive of legalized gambling and of sports betting. Most colleges are not, but many of the professional teams are. And so what it's going to look like in our state is going to depend on kind of that support that comes from those leagues. But yeah, that's a great example. And even if you look at the NBA, if you follow it online, every single shot that's made or free throw that's taken, the percentage of win changes in the corners. So you're always seeing those stats. You're always seeing that up and down. And that's a great example of how we are pulling it into our culture as something that's completely typical, and we're connecting it very directly with sports now. We're saying if you're watching sports, you should be betting. Yeah. That's the imagery that we kind of get. So it feels almost odd if we're not.
And I
so
that's like the Brown Stadium, they even get like a sports book in-house or something at the stadium?
Yeah, we'll talk about that here in the next slide. But yeah, definitely. So those are possibilities for sure down the line. The other thing with this too is that we have these immediate victories with what you're kind of talking about, are in-play bets, live bets. And what that means is that you don't anymore just have to bet on the outcome of the game, who wins or loses. Now you can take bets throughout the entire game, called in-play betting, where you can say, okay, this person's a switch hitter. I'm going to say they're going to come out and they're going to bat right, or they're going to bat left. Then you can pick, are they going to hit a single or a double? There's all of these different plays that we can, bets that we can make throughout the course of the game, not just on the victor. Well, with that makes the rate of play quicker, and the faster we're placing bets, the more risky the activity is. So the in-play betting makes it a little bit more risky than just simply placing a bet on who's winning or who's losing. So how we participate in this type of gambling activity has an impact on financially how well we are, as well as how it could cause us to develop an issue with it later down the line potentially. And then the other thing is, just simply because of the numbers of bets we can place, the legislation that we have on the amounts we can place on bets, the number of opportunities we have simply because of the amount of sports that are taking place, we have opportunities for more lofty risk-taking, which means betting more often or betting higher amounts. So sports betting is considered to be one of the more addictive forms of gambling activities that we have. So it's slot machines, scratch-off lottery tickets, and then sports betting is right up there in the top.
Yeah, I mean, they give you $200 just for signing up into the app. Like, that's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, so it's free money, and often they coin it as no risk, which is kind of false advertising because there's always risk. So we just have to be cautious of those kinds of marketing ploys that come through. Ohio's doing a great job of trying to regulate that before legalization, so that's amazing, and hopefully that comes to fruition in the very end. And there are some cases where there could be a large payoff that comes through, and there's a possibility potentially every game depending on how we're betting. So some individuals can win a lot of money. The likelihood is low, but it does happen. So all of these things make it something that's can be very enticing for some individuals who like to gamble. Okay, so just a little bit about our legalization that's coming forward. So there's going to be 3 types of gambling that's allowed. So we have the kiosk or kind of retailer spaces. This is going to be monitored by the Ohio Lottery Commission. They're going to oversee that activity. And so this is going to be any place currently in Ohio, a business that is currently licensed to sell lottery tickets is eligible to apply to participate in our sports betting adventure. Doesn't mean that everyone is going to get approved, but every single place that you go to where you see a lottery ticket being sold, or liquor license, where they sell lottery tickets, you can see that there's a possibility. So right now, I think there's around 900 venues that have already been, that are on the soon-to-be approved list. They're not fully approved, but they're in the market, and there's about 1,400 that have applied. So we're going to have lots of different spaces, and these are going to be kiosk-based. So similar to our instant scratch-off tickets, where we can put $1 in and get a ticket out, we'll have some little machines actually kiosk there where we can utilize. So that's directly tied to the liquor license and to the lottery sales. They have to be a pre-existing, already have that in the works now. So, but that will be run by the Ohio Lottery. And then we have our other types, which is online, and then our brick and mortar. So this is going to be taken over by the Casino Control Commission. They're monitoring this. And it's really interesting because the Ohio Lottery, they're both kind of a controller and they're also a business. The Casino Control Commission, they're a control. They're not a business. They're trying to keep everything safe and keep everything in order and keep everything legal. So they have two interests, and it's a fun little space to kind of learn about. But both great key players, very much into consumer protections. So that's amazing for our state. We have a really good working relationship. So hopefully that will result in something really positive. So that leads us to the brick and mortar. Then those are going to be housed at casinos, racinos, like you'd mentioned, sport venues that have a possibility of applying, and then other approved establishments as well. With our online betting, we also have that possibility of in-play betting as well. This is going to be on international, professional, and collegiate sports. So the possibility of betting is going to be quite widespread across an entire day, across the season. So it's definitely going to branch out our reach currently for gambling opportunities, which is why we're definitely thinking about it, especially in regards to our financial wellness, because the opportunities to play are across the year. And so how we budget that into our daily lives, into our yearly budget, is really important if we choose to do this. So the mobile wagering generally should be registered through the casino is right now my understanding on that. So you don't have to physically go in though. So they're kind of working through that system. Some of it is still a little up in the air, and I'm learning as we go. So I'm excited to learn more about it myself as it gets more solidified. But all these different opportunities will be existing going in the next few months. So that's a little bit about sports betting and legalization. Any thoughts or questions on this aspect of it?
Yeah, I knew it was coming. Been a lot of talk about it, but I didn't know how it was positioned for versus now and what's coming. So it's just I still don't have any real concept, I guess, of what like this is gonna look like yet. But I just have been noticing more of it just because I watch NFL, and like it's the first time I've ever noticed it like really being pushed. And I know Ohio was like gearing up. And that's why I came in and I was like, wait, what is going on with all this? So
yeah, like those online players like DraftKings and FanDuel and all of those ones, they're pushing sign up now, get the $200 bonus for when it's legal. Because right now you can participate, but you can't participate on the gambling side of it. So you can participate on the fantasy sports side. But come January, once they're approved at the state level, then that participation can shift over. So they're trying to pull people in now in order to get them into the booking, get them ready to go. So yeah, the marketing is coming really furious right now. So you're kind of going to hear both. You're going to hear responsible gambling marketing, and you're going to hear sign up to gamble to sports bet. So
yeah, I couldn't believe it. I think it was Sunday Night Football. They do it now, maybe. But like literally, a graphic comes up, like a graphic, and it's about a bet, and it's one of the like talking head people say, "Here's my bet for the game tonight." You know, and it was like total number of yards. Like I'm going plus like 46, or like they said total total number of points, number of like first downs, and I'm like, holy smokes! Like, is this for real? Like I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Never seen it just like blatantly like that. Yeah. It's always sort of had like a stigma, you know. But now they just openly talk about it, like it's part of the pregame warm-up. Interesting. Yeah,
so the whole environment, the physical environment will change, and as well as how we discuss it is going to change as well. The good thing, though, is that with the collegiate sports, the state stuck pretty strong to no marketing on college campuses. And so that's good that we won't be, because college athletes are one of our greatest at-risk groups. And so there's no marketing on college campuses, which is really nice to help protect them. And also that means there's no sports books on the college campuses, but professional sports are different. So the individual teams, organizations will decide if they want to apply to have one or not within their venue. So we'll see kind of what it ends up resulting when we finally start to legalize. But at least we do have that protection in place for college students, which is really good. And there are limits as well that are in place. So we do have consumer protections in general for the population. It's just a matter of kind of monitoring that and seeing how it goes and seeing how things need to be changed along the way. But yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. So when we get into this idea of gambling behavior, there's kind of a spectrum that we could look at. And where we want to kind of stay is towards this green-yellow side. So we can't say that there's no risk with gambling because that's literally the definition of gambling, right? You're risking something. So every bet or wager you make, you are taking a risk. So there's never no risk gambling. That's a fallacy. That's not we can't coin it that way. But what we have here is obviously the least risky activity is not gambling or gambling infrequently. So someone who decides to go once a year to Vegas to have kind of a weekend away. That's very infrequent, so that could kind of fall into near that no gambling category. In this category, they're not going to have any problems with gambling. There's not going to be any issues because everything is going to be ultimately under their control, and it's done rarely or infrequently, so not really much opportunity for issues to result. The casual social gambling, that's really where most people fall within our state, which is amazing. So those who do choose to gamble, they gamble for recreation and for excitement, and they have other forms of entertainment. So it's not the key thing that they do, and that's the point of it. We want to go into it knowing that this is for fun. It's not to make money. So when we think about our idea of finances, when we're looking at budgeting gambling activities, which should be included into our budgets if it's something we participate in, it goes into the cost of your recreation or your overall leisure activities. It doesn't fit into the category of income, although some people would like that to happen. There's a cost to play, and so you have to budget it in. How much money can you actually lose? So if you budget $50 a month for entertainment and you choose to go to a casino and spend $50 at the slots, well, that fits together. If you don't have $50, well then you're outside your budget. So that's the safest space to be. Well, where we start to see problems is when gambling starts to become more of a main event, where we start to focus on it more regularly, so we're participating more often, betting daily, betting on every game that comes through, things like that. So that's serious social gambling. Not yet necessarily anything that's causing negative outcomes, but it's becoming more frequent that it could become an issue. Then that transitions us into the harmfully involved gambling. And this is where now we're starting to see an individual participate not for the fun or excitement anymore. They're really starting to do it in order to escape that negative feeling that they have. We start to kind of see more anxiety and stress come around this idea of gambling. And because we do see some issues resulting here, that fits under our criteria of problem gambling. So that's our watch area. We want to make sure that we're thinking about what we're doing here. If we're having these issues or seeing these things result, that we start to step back, assess ourselves, and see how we can change that behavior. Because the next level is previously called pathological gambling, and put this in here because many people know the term pathological gambling. This actually is gambling disorder. So it fits in the same category as substance use disorders. It translates into a condition that now is lifelong that we have to manage and results in some serious issues, very similar to substance use disorders, including preoccupation, continuing despite negative effects, and it impacts the entire family, the entire individual, and the final result could ultimately be some major financial distress. So we want to keep our gambling behaviors over here in the green and the yellow side, and if we get to the red side, alter those behaviors and seek assistance. Any questions on that spectrum? No?
And I just want to alert you to the time.
How much time do I have?
It goes till 11:20.
Oh my goodness. Well, you're all amazing, so we're talking too much. Okay, so we'll do the low risk gambling strategies, and then we'll get out of here since our time is done. Thank you for your engagement. So low risk gambling strategies are strategies that we employ in order to make gambling stay fun and safe. And basically it surrounds the idea of moderation, but also being aware of your personal budget. That's a huge aspect of being a responsible gambler. So the first key is setting a dollar and time limit and sticking to it. And that dollar amount is based upon what you can afford to lose, because you're going to lose. So it's what you can afford to lose, right? That's a key thing to keep in mind. The other thing is that balance between gambling and other recreational activities. Keeping that balance is really important. And knowing the risk before you go. At our table, Townhall 2, we have a gambling screen you can complete. It's 9 questions that let you know your current risk level based on your current gambling behavior. And that will help you be able to make decisions going forward as to how you'd like to participate going through. A few other things. Knowing that you're not going to win. Doesn't matter how much you know, it's not a guarantee. Don't borrow to play. And although you can now legally use credit cards to gamble, that's borrowing. So the safety tip is don't use credit cards in order to borrow. Don't borrow from friends or family or from loan sharks or anyone of that nature. If you have to borrow, you don't have the money to participate. And that's one of the key things. Know that even if you are having a hot streak when you're rolling those die, everyone is going to lose over time. The house always wins. It doesn't matter what game it is. That is the rule. That is why we have gambling as a business, because the house always wins. Always avoid mixing gambling and alcohol or any other substance, because that takes our spending out of our control and into the control of the substances. And if you do lose, don't chase losses, which means betting more or going back to try to win more, because you're just going to end up going down deeper and deeper. And if we're at that stage, we're going to need to consider calling Townhall 2 and get an assessment. So so then I guess our time is up, so we'll stop there.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank you very
appreciate
much.
it.
Yay, you're welcome.
Great job.